Hi, I'm Kylie, just another Army vet. Welcome to another reaction video. So today is my part 3 and final reaction to the Beard Biceps podcast with Major Sapru. Let's get to it.
Coming back to the themes of the show, so with Special Forces podcast, I often struggle to come up with new questions because we've had so many that I don't know what else to ask. But you've given me 3 or 4 new tangents to think about now. I have to go back to some of my old questions, which are points of interest for me. Animals. We spoke about the wild boar you saw in Sri Lanka, but you've also served in Northeast and Kashmir. Did you have animal encounters there?
Not in the Northeast.
Okay.
We were hitting a Naga camp in Burma. People talk about this trans-border operation and stuff like that, which happened in the Northeast. The Indian Army has been crossing over, especially the SF units have been crossing over for some years. And the Burmese government and the Indian government, of course, know about it. It was with permission from the Burmese government that we would cross over. So this is one of those operations. We'd crossed over. It was a very large Naga camp. And this must have been about 5 or 6 kilometers inside Burma. And at night, we started hearing this. It's a monkey called the gibbon.
The
Have you
what?
heard? Gibbon.
Okay.
And it had a laugh, it's like a human laugh. And we suddenly heard this loud coming in this very thick forest in the Northeast, and nobody knew. Say, is it the militants coming back? Is there some sort of a signaling happening? Much later, we came back. We realized it's an animal of sorts. Much later, when I checked up, I realized it's called a gibbon. I think it's called a gibbon, and it's a protected species.
So hearing a gibbon in the distance sounds like someone's laughing, but if you want to hear one of the scariest sounds on earth, listen to a howler monkey.
In J&K, of course, I sighted leopards. In fact, I had a very nice conversation with a militant chap called Sher Khan over this incident that happened in North Kashmir. Very interesting. And the first time I realized that these guys also have a sense of humor, because I used to talk to a lot of them on the radio set, just trying to get into their head to figure out, are they romantics, adventurers, like, some of the SF guys are.
It's a classified podcast.
I had a 2-3 years and chatted quite a few of them. I had to ensure that I chat only the Paki militants, the foreign militants. Bulk of them were there for economic reasons, but a lot of them, the leaders, of course, had gone to some madrasa or the other. So, there are other experiences. Coming to this one, there's thick snow, place called Lolab Valley. And at about 2 o'clock, we were in tents. 2 o'clock, there's firing, a burst of fire. Shit, somebody's attacked the post, some nonsense. 3 feet of snow, miserably cold. So I got out, walked up to the sentry post. And it was a dug-in place with sandbags around it. It was a light machine gun post. There were 2 guys there looking very shaken up. So I said, who fired? I said, any sighting? Did you see anything? We're camped in a forest. So attack. So sher aa gaya. Now sher is a common word for tiger, lion, anything, but this was particularly a leopard. It's a big cat. It's a big cat. So I, shone my torch, hard snow. So there were pug marks, and I noticed there were 2 of them. So they were hunting in pair. So I said, what happened? He says, so we saw this ice sparkling in the darkness, and before we could react, this guy leapt. And he must have miscalculated, because he landed on top of the sandbag and knocked the LMG barrel off.
Oh.
The number 2 guy behind him opened up with the AK. That's when both of them ran off. Next morning, the sun came out. In bad weather, the sun came out, and the radios crackled to life, and militant stations coming alive. And there's this militant station. I recognized his voice. He recognized my voice. Came on set and said he's berating some Kashmiri militant, and he's telling that chap, Kashmiri commander, he's telling him, he says, Bilal ko bheja tha ration ke liye. What's happened? He's gone last 2 days. We haven't had food to eat. If this is the way you conduct jihad, "Yeah, you're a bloody guest. We've come here to fight. 3 days, 2 days, he hasn't come back with any bloody food. And added to that, there is another problem. There is a bloody leopard who's come and attacked, and now Javed is mauled. Now they're sitting in a hideout somewhere in the forest. There, miserable conditions. And now Javed is mauled. Now tell that bastard to come up as soon as possible and get a bloody Hakim also while you're doing that. And if Javed died, he's pitching into this bloody Kashmiri guy who's constantly saying sorry, sorry, my fault and stuff like that. So I heard this. So I said, Salaam alaikum, Sher Khan. No, Fauji bhai, leave the channel, please. I've got problems happening here.
Really?
So you could talk like that. I got my own set of problems here. I said, I know your problem, Sher Khan. You've been attacked by a leopard. He says, oh, forget that. And I said, no. Listen to me. That leopard, because you fuckers don't come down and fight. You bastards are sitting up there or hanging around in the villages, eating free food. We've trained these leopards. They're trained by us. Now these leopards are going to come hunting for you.
Aren't leopards like extremely shy and try avoiding human
They
leopard?
They'll attack kids, dogs. They're very
Small
shy.
animals.
But if you're desperate, There's no
Mm.
food. This is thick snow. Yeah, this is -10, -15 degrees. No food. I recall that incident with Sher Khan, that conversation.
I'm inclined to know more about these classified podcasts you've done with militants. Like,
No, I had nice conversations with them. I realized that
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like in those days the military radios just were not equipped with frequency hop.
yeah, they were. My impression of them was that they were a narrow-minded, limited people. They're as T.E. Lawrence said in his book. Their intellects lay fallow in incurious resignation. Their imagination was not vivid. Their thought process was very mathematical. Those who had studied in a madrasa had been taught history related to Muslim glory. They could tell you about Muhammad Ghori, Mahmud Ghazni. But if you question them about Ranjit Singh
World War II.
or the British, in Northwest Frontier, or Hari Singh Nalwa, they hadn't heard about all that. They were convinced in their superiority as fighting people. They had a bit of a disdain for the Hindu, called you a Bania. And the background is that, most of their villages right up till Kabul, right up till Central Asia, and the guy the Hindu generally was the Bania.
So they called them a Benir. What is that?
He was not the fighting man. So their impression was that you're not a good fighter. Very cocky about his own fighting ability.
So that's a really big weakness, is that you underestimate your enemy, and I'm sure that India has used that to their advantage many times.
But
Were they good fighters?
they were good fighters.
Because of
They were
what?
good fighters.
Because of training?
No, because of motivation. Because
Aggression.
of their commitment to what they believed in.
Mm.
They were good fighters. And in my time, the Flotsam, which had been kicked out of Afghanistan after the Soviets left, that bunch which was footloose was then diverted into Kashmir. So the bunch which came in were very seasoned fighters. If you got into a firefight with them, you could see that this guy is not a novice. You see, if as an experienced combat man, one can tell from
Maneuvers.
the way you maneuver, the way you fire, what sort of an opposition you're up against.
From the way you fire.
Right. You can see the guy's nervous. How accurate is his fire? How does he engage you? Experienced soldiers will tell you very easily that, oh, I'm up against a novice. This bunch is not going to stand and fight. So all this comes with experience. I mean, the point is, this bunch used to fight you exactly the way you were fighting. You would fire single rounds. You would fire double tap. The SF generally doesn't believe in automatic fire.
What
They
does
believe
that?
in accurate fire. When you switch the lever and you go empty the magazine, and it's all over the place, and you put another magazine. Nobody does that. It's discouraged.
Okay.
Ideally, it's discouraged.
It's more pinpoint
It's-
accuracy firing.
Precision is more important.
That's 100% true. Automatic fire with an M4 or an AK-47 is not going to accomplish much because you're not really aiming. That's why more precise shots, one at a time, is much more effective.
Ammunition is important. You got to save it.
Exactly.
What you see is what you fire at, unless such as suppressing fire, whatever. So this bunch, you could see their fire was accurate. They would control their ammunition, and they would fight till the end. There was no surrender of any kind. There were no Fedayins in those days. Fedayin bunch came in later.
Who are not good fighters.
Oh, good fighters, yeah. That's a one-way mission.
Okay. Like they're coming to you to die themselves.
Yes, it's a one-way mission. He's not going back.
So that's very scary when you're facing an enemy with that kind of mindset. The mindset that suicide bombers have. The ones that say, I don't care if I die. I just want to take out as many of them as I can.
Are there ever any hand-to-hand combat scenarios?
Not in my case, but I know people who've had that experience.
They live to tell the tale.
They lived, yeah.
How do you take
I know a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, who chased a militant, who turned around and leveled his AK and fired, and it was a misfire. 1 in a million chance. And then they wrestled on the road in the darkness.
How big was your friend?
He's about shorter than me, but he's all right.
And versus the militant who was...
I don't know, but I just recall that he's a Paki guy, I think. Paki guy or whatever. He's carrying a small that book. And then he says, are you going to give me any information? He said, so you might as well shoot me, sir. Finish me. There was no interrogation, nothing at all. He was shot immediately. But he was very lucky. Very lucky. Luck is very important. Huh? Luck is important in everything in life, but it manifests itself more strongly in the profession of arms.
Yeah.
Bad luck could be as bad as getting shot or maimed or injured. And I remember in my time there were 4 officers.
So do Hindus believe in good luck and bad luck?
Who were known for their luck. I mean, they were fine officers, all for SF. One left the army, sold his company, retired at 48, a very wealthy man. The other is still serving as a major general, and 2 are dead. Walia is one of them, and another tossmate of mine. Both are dead. But the talk was generally, if these chaps are going out, contact is imminent. Cock your weapons. So-and-so is leading something, some shit is going to hit fan for sure. So luck is very important. You can keep making the effort, but if you're not lucky, you're not getting the game.
What is it about being out there in the field, up there on a mountain, away from civilization, that the average civilian will never understand? I'm asking you a question about food. I'm asking you questions about hunting. I'm asking you questions about what it feels like being really out there in nature. What does it do to the mind? Like, probably right from your first experience to some really memorable experience, because I've had special forces soldiers come on and say they've seen some of the most beautiful places in the world out there. I've had some people come and say they've eaten things that they would never eat ever. And I've had people come and say that they've seen things which they didn't expect to see.
No. So Ranveer, if you're talking about the scenery, of course, you go and see places which I don't think so even the locals go and see. You end up seeing things. I mean, I remember this trans-border operation into Burma. There were teak trees which were practically,
The size
maybe
of
20 meters and 20 feet in diameter. Huge Burma teak trees. They must have been easily 500, 700, 600 years old. I've seen Deodar forest, extremely huge trees. And there were views, of course. There were sunsets and there were sunrises which were beautiful. It depends what your state of mind is. Are you getting that chance to appreciate? You can always get that chance. It's not that there's a firefight happening all the time. and especially when you're going into your target area where you're laying in ambush, stuff like that. But it's hard. It's a hard life. When you're out, we don't light a fire. There is no tea. It's food that you carry that you have for the next 3 days, 4 days. It's raining. It's cold, and it's not comfortable. Um, but there is a certain amount of training. There is a certain amount of culture that this is the way you operate. The difference is you have a traveler, for example, and a hunter. A traveler goes along in the jungle on a path, he comes across a wild animal, he shoots it, carries on. A hunter will go inside to hunt. There's a difference. Special forces, by nature, because they don't hold ground, they have that hunting ability, which means if you need to get game, you need to go out, you need to be seeking, which means there's so much time you need to spend out, constantly out, and it takes a lot of effort to get a man. You know, it's your luck is not going to be on your side every time you step out. So you see these contacts, but the effort that goes in to get that 30 seconds of contact, hours and days and nights spent just toiling up hills, sitting in ambushes, sitting in the cold, till you get that 1 minute, 2 minute, 60-second contact, firefight, couple of kills. But the effort is too much. When I was there, the place was teeming with militants. Your radio set used to be it was like a cricket commentary. You start 8 o'clock in the morning, and you'd hear this chatter, militant chatter all over the place. And in the evening, the last report would be given to this Pakistani chat there. So, coming to your point, great places. But sometimes you have so much weight. Sometimes you've been walking 13 hours, 14 hours, 15 hours. The radio operator starts sitting down. The RL guy is struggling with the weight. It starts raining. One hell of a man to then sit and appreciate. But I used to carry later stages. I started carrying a camera. I said, I'm seeing something which I'll never see again, and I should capture it. And I did manage to capture a big firefight. I mean, it's very difficult to see that there's a firefight happening because those old cameras which you carried in your dungri, but there's a house burning and a couple of bodies lying around, some militants lying around, for whatever it's worth.
One night in my barracks in Iraq, I do remember actually witnessing a firefight, and for some reason, I chose not to put it on a camera, which I do regret to this day. However, I still have that memory etched into my mind.
Is there a reality of Kashmir that you would like to highlight for the urban Indian youth listening into this podcast? Because again, a lot of them only get their information from news sources, which I feel in the modern day you can't rely on. So, what does a soldier have to say who served there? And I'm sure you're also in touch with the soldiers who are currently serving there. As far as I understand the situation from soldiers, it's gotten cleaner over time and it's heading towards a place of the conflict being resolved to a certain degree. But what's the truth?
I often tell this to people. I've been called for a couple of other talks, and I often tell people that you go to Kashmir now, you can sail down in a shikara, you can go anywhere you feel like, and you tend to forget the effort, the toil, the loss of blood that has gone into making this, where you can now go anywhere in Kashmir. It's so peaceful, so safe, barring Pulwama, and they've always been a hot belt. And the example I gave is that in my time, when you crossed Patni Top, you cocked your weapon and you started scanning the hillside. And I recall the SP Kupwara coming to call on us in the Lolab. And like you'd call on someone, you'd probably carry a box of chocolates, sweets, or whatever, flowers. Now the SP Saab drops in and he's carrying grenades, loose ammunition, and the reaction from the officer standing there, "Arey, SP Saab, takalluf ki kya baat thi? Arey, main kaise khali haath aa sakta hu?" And when he left, as a parting gift, he was given some empty magazines, a pistol, or whatever. Now, I just give this example. Look at the culture then. The SP is calling on you, and instead of getting any mithai or anything, this guy's presenting ordnance, arms, ammunition, or whatever. And the joke used to be in the Lulab that be careful when you till your land because you don't know whose cache you might just unearth. I guess, sir, every man has gone, every boy of fighting age has gone across and got trained and carried a weapon. It was packed with weapons. The Pakis had really pushed in a lot of stuff, lot of stuff. But from those days to now, what an amazing change.
And it's been a gradual cleanup.
Of course, sir, it's taken a lot of time.
Do you have a timeline on when Kashmir will be conflict free, or are we not looking at a conflict free
See,
scenario?
now 370s come in, which has been removed, and that has not been viewed by a lot of people locally as something which is good for them. And it'll take certainly a decade, I think, before they see the benefits of things coming in from the center. The elections have to happen. They need to then have a bunch of politicians or leaders who look at the larger interest of the state. So far, just the 3-4 families who are playing around, treating it as their own fiefdom. It was more economics of politics. Money is being pumped in. Money is going to a few pockets. Militancy is on. Just carries on and on and on. Nobody wants to stir the pot. This has stirred the pot now, and I think we should see moment the mindset changes, moment the average Kashmiri understands that integrating with the rest of the country matters, and I think it'll change. It's already changing.
There's been a couple of changes in my own mind over the course of doing so many military podcasts. One is that each episode builds perspective in a very deep way. Uh, and that perspective has taught me that our nation is guarded by the best of the best. Like, I think the Indian population as a whole kind of underestimates the power of its own armed forces in general. I would especially like to highlight special forces here, but armed forces in general. One of the strongest militaries in the world. The second big change is I have become aware of the dangers around me and my family. And I'm speaking here as a very primal version of myself. In terms of we don't live in a completely safe world. But the fact that we have the kind of armed forces we have, it gives a lot of civilians hope and security. Like we feel like we're in a safe country.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
Glad to
And,
hear that.
I think with the podcast, this is the intention. I wish to put out the truth out there. So, sir, firstly, big salute to you. I'm sorry I'm not standing.
Oh, I
And
salute you also, Ranveer, for doing a good job. You're doing more branding than the army does for itself. And if through your podcast, you have a bunch of youngsters who join the army, save the nation, you've done it.
if you've got a distribution channel like this, you better use it for the right stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing you were doing it.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that you're doing.
It does certainly seem that Ranveer is able to use his platform in a positive way that actually helps promote the Indian Armed Forces.
And in my time, there used to be just 3, 4, 5 people volunteering for the SF in the entire passing out of 300-400 cadets. Now I'm told the response is much better. There's a bunch of youngsters who want to join the SF.
Yeah.
Very good.
I mean, we're just adding to the strong branding of the strong product, which is the military. But that's one thing I want to thank you for serving our nation as a soldier, sir. But the other thing is, on a very human level, thanks for the brotherly conversation. This was a lot of fun speaking to you. Very easy to speak to, and I thought I knew a lot about the SF, and then I meet people like you who just keep adding layers. So what I gained from today's conversation is the whole emotional side of it. Honestly, not too many people
Contacts
speak
and
about it.
firing, and
Yeah,
that's always there in the SF.
Yeah.
There's an emotional side also.
yeah, and that's what's in it for a lot of listeners who probably may not ever join the military, but are learning from every word that you speak. So you've done a huge thing by like helping a lot of young dudes with the healing process. That's what I'll say.
Thank you very much, Ranveer. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope people
Likewise.
enjoy listening to
Likewise, sir.
this.
And I hope to have you on the show again very soon.
Inshallah, as they say.
Inshallah. Appreciate it, sir. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, Jai Hind. Thank you very much.
So that was another great podcast. I think Ranveer is able to ask some really good and insightful questions. Major Sapru was able to answer everything and give his perspective and help put the viewer into his shoes. So I think that is awesome. I am really glad that Ranveer does focus a lot of his podcast on veterans. After all, it is important to raise awareness about the military because they're the ones who keep you safe. Thank Major Sapru for his service, and thank you for watching. If you want to watch another Beer Biceps podcast, I have one for you right here. If you do want to help support the channel, I could really appreciate a comment, like, sub, or thanks.